We're joined now by Khurrum Wahid, a civil rights and criminal defense attorney, also a founding member of the Florida Muslim Bar Association.
Welcome, glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
The president, it's not for lack of trying to get this thing through the courts, but he can't catch a break.
Well, you can look at it that way, or he can't seem to figure out how to make it constitutional. That seems to be what two judges now have said, one in Maryland and one in Hawaii.
In what way is it unconstitutional according to these judges?
Well, the judge in Hawaii said that there's a statute that Congress passed that explicitly says you cannot discriminate based on nationality, race, gender, when you're allowing people to come to the country. That's 8 U.S. Code 1152. So that's a Congress ruling, and he's in violation of that. And then today, the judge in Maryland said that based on the president's statements, both when he was a candidate and when he was a president, he basically has made it clear this is a Muslim ban, and therefore it's violative of the First Amendment.
Well, what about the argument that the United States should have a right to keep people who it feels are a threat from coming into the country?
Absolutely, and we've been doing that for as long as we've had a country. We've had immigration laws, and we do it the way Americans do everything, which is not collective punishment, not everybody from one country, but one person at a time, individual vetting.
But this is not every country. These are only specific countries.
But it's everyone from those countries. And unfortunately, that means that we're not looking at individuals and looking at whether or not they will be an asset to us or a detriment to us. We're saying just because of where you were born, you are a threat to this country, and that's not American.
So the administration has said this is not a Muslim ban. There are millions of people from other countries besides these countries on the list that can freely come into the United States. Venezuela and North Korea are now on the list. Those are not Muslim countries. What would you say to that?
Well, look, Venezuela, the only restriction there are people who are the government of Venezuela. And North Korea, the only immigration from North Korea is if you defect. So it wouldn't apply to them anyways. There's zero immigration from North Korea.
But how about all these other Muslim countries that are not on the list?
Well, I think that actually brings another question up in a way, which is that if this is really security, and we look back at what happened in September 11th, there were Saudi Arabian citizens, there were Egyptian citizens, we haven't targeted those countries. So one really has to question, what's the purpose of this in the first place? And ultimately, there can be no dispute that the majority of people in the countries targeted are Muslim.
So another couple of losses for the administration this week. They're promising to appeal yet again. I'm guessing this will eventually make its way back to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, right now the Supreme Court said the last set of appeals that were going through the system are moot because of this new executive order, EO3, and therefore they dismissed the prior case. And in fact, they vacated the lower circuit court rulings. So that means that we're really starting from scratch again. So as we just saw yesterday and today, we've got two temporary restraining orders. They have to go forward and become litigated as permanent restraining orders, and then they could work their way up to the Supreme Court. I don't know that the Supreme Court will have an opportunity to hear it in this term.
You know what's so difficult to understand is that when this was first presented by President Trump, it was supposed to be a temporary ban so that they could review the policy of allowing people to come in. And here we are so many months later, you would think that by now those policies would have been reviewed already.
Absolutely. And really, when this came out as an executive order, the president said, look, there's an urgent need, and that's why we need to do it this way. And that's what the attorneys for the government argued in both the first and the second litigations. But here we are 10 months later almost, and no change. And quite frankly, there's been a shuffling of the countries. Sudan's off the list, Chad is on the list, and there's really no rhyme or reason to it. So one would think that by now, if the president thought this was important, he would have gone to Congress and just had them pass the law.
Meantime, it's all playing out in the courts.
Right.
Khurrum Wahid, who is a civil rights attorney and a founding member of the Florida Muslim Bar Association. Thanks very much for coming in, Khurrum. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.